Welcome back, everyone. Ready for another deep dive.
Always.
Today, we're tackling a figure who goes by many names: Kaal, Shaitan, Satan, the devil. He pops up in religions all over the world, and we're going to try to figure out just who this guy really is.
Sounds like a challenge. Where are we starting?
Well, we've got some fascinating sources to work with: Kabir Sagar, the Vedas, even the Quran and the Bible.
Wow, talk about a range.
Right, so let's start with the basics. Kaal, the name itself comes from Hindu tradition, right?
It does. And those who have attained God actually use that name to refer to him.
Interesting. So what's the deal with this Kaal character? He's not exactly a wallflower, from what I've read.
No, definitely not. 1,000 heads, ears, eyes, feet, horns, cloven hooves. Talk about making an entrance.
Yeah, that's a lot to take in, but here's the thing: he supposedly vowed never to show his true form. Why all the secrecy?
Good question. The Kabir Sagar suggests it's because he's cursed to, well, devour human souls.
Whoa, okay.
Yeah, and apparently he doesn't want anyone finding out about his unique dietary habits. Imagine the family drama if his sons Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva found out.
Ha, now that's a story I'd love to hear. So he's this powerful being lurking in the shadows. That actually connects to the Bhagavad Gita, right?
You got it. The speaker in the Gita, who's identified as Kaal, straight up says he's unseen and unknown.
That's kind of creepy when you think about it. Makes you wonder how much of what we think is divine is actually coming from this hidden guy.
Exactly. It really challenges our assumptions.
It does. But let's back up for a second. How did Kaal even get to be so powerful in the first place?
Right, so the Kabir Sagar talks about his origins. Apparently, he used to go by Kaal and lived in this eternal realm called Satlok.
Until what? He got evicted?
Pretty much. The supreme god, Kabir, banished him for some, let's say, misconduct.
Ooh, juicy. Details, please?
Well, the details are a bit fuzzy, but the point is, he got kicked out and renamed Kaal. Then he needed somewhere to put all the souls he was supposed to consume, so he went on a bit of a cosmic real estate venture.
Cosmic real estate. This is getting good. So he had to build these universes, these Brahmins. What did he use?
He managed to convince the supreme god to give him the 5 elements, the tattvas, and the 3 qualities, the gunas.
Clever. Those became the building blocks for his 21 Brahmins. Okay, so now he's got the property, but how did souls end up becoming his tenants?
The Kabir Sagar describes how souls in Satlok got totally fascinated by Kaal's spiritual practices. They practically idolized him.
Like a cosmic celebrity. Sounds familiar.
Exactly. It's fascinating how this idea of idolization and attachment plays out on such a grand scale. Anyway, despite warnings from the supreme god, these souls chose to follow Kaal.
Wow, that's a big risk to take. So they ended up in these Brahmins, trapped with Kaal. It's like a cosmic cautionary tale, right? Don't follow the wrong guru.
Absolutely. And what's interesting is this theme of a powerful figure rebelling against the supreme god and influencing humanity. It pops up in other religions too. Think of Mara in Buddhism or Kala in Japanese mythology.
Ooh, right. I'm sensing a pattern here. And this all sounds pretty similar to the stories of Satan in Christianity and Shaitan in Islam, doesn't it?
You're definitely picking up on a common thread here. And it gets even more interesting when we delve into the texts themselves. For example, the Quran tells the story of Shaitan, also known as Iblis, who refuses to bow to Adam and gets banished as a result.
Okay, I'm seeing the parallels here. A powerful being, defiance, banishment. It's a recurring theme. What about the Bible? Where does Satan fit into all of this?
Well, in the Bible, Satan famously appears as a serpent and tempts Eve to eat the forbidden fruit. It's seen as the ultimate act of disobedience that led to, well, humanity's downfall. But here's where things get really interesting. Some interpretations of the Quran suggest that the narrator might not be the supreme god, Allah, but actually Shaitan himself.
Wait a minute, are you saying the Quran could be narrated by the devil? That's a pretty wild idea. What evidence is there for that?
It's definitely a controversial topic, but the verses are there. And there are similar interpretations regarding the Bible that the voice we're hearing might not actually be the voice of God. It really makes you think about how we understand these sacred texts and the figures they depict. We'll get into the implications of that a bit later, but first, I think we need to figure out, is there any way out of this cosmic trap? Is escape even possible?
That's the big question, isn't it? If we're all trapped in this system, and maybe even the texts themselves are coming from him, it's a pretty bleak picture. Where do we even begin to look for an escape route?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And to be honest, the sources we've looked at, they don't exactly give a straight answer.
Figures. But there's got to be some clue somewhere, right?
Well, the Vedas mention that the supreme god, he can actually liberate souls from this whole cycle of birth and death, essentially breaking them free from Kaal's grasp.
Okay, so there's hope. But it doesn't sound easy. What do the texts say about this whole liberation process?
They emphasize recognizing the supreme god for who they truly are. and achieving union with them. It's not about worshiping Kaal or any other deity. It's about transcending this cycle of reincarnation that he controls.
So it's not your typical follow the rules kind of religion then. What does that mean for all the established religious practices we see today? Are they all on the wrong track?
Well, it suggests that true liberation might actually lie beyond the limits of organized religion. The Kabir Sagar, for example, points to this practice called Surat Shabd Yoga as a way to connect with the supreme gods.
Surat Shabd Yoga? Never heard of it.
Yeah, it's not exactly mainstream. Basically, it involves focusing on the divine sound current, the Shabd, to achieve liberation. It's not just about faith or belief. It's about actively engaging in this specific spiritual practice that can lead to a direct experience of the divine.
So it's not your typical prayer or ritual. What makes this sound current so important for liberation?
That's a great question, and it takes us into the more esoteric aspects of these teachings. The Kabir Sagar says that the Shabd is like the primordial vibration, the foundation of all creation. It's the essence of the supreme God, and by tuning into it, souls can actually merge with their divine source and break free from this cycle of birth and death.
It's like a sonic pathway back home. Is this idea unique to these texts, or do other traditions have similar concepts?
The idea of escaping suffering and reaching a higher state of being, that's definitely a common thread across various spiritual traditions. In Buddhism, for example, the path to enlightenment leads to liberation from the cycle of suffering, which is basically the same idea as escaping Kaal's realm.
Right. So even though the terms and practices differ, the underlying goal is the same. Recognizing a higher power, a supreme God who's totally separate from figures like Khalil or Satan.
Exactly. And that brings us to a really important question. If these figures represent some kind of cosmic trap, and even the sacred texts could be originating from them, how should we approach these religions? Do we need to completely rethink everything we thought we knew?
Whoa, yeah, it's like we need to look beyond the surface, question everything, even our most sacred beliefs. But where do we even start? How can we tell the difference between the truth and the voice of this potential deceiver?
It requires a shift in perspective, a willingness to look at these texts with a critical eye, and realizing that they might be presenting a limited or even intentionally distorted view. It's like becoming a spiritual detective, examining the evidence and exploring different interpretations.
So we shouldn't just throw these texts out, but we need to engage with them more thoughtfully, question their assumptions, and look for deeper truths that might be hidden beneath the surface. That sounds like a lot of work. How do we do that without getting totally lost?
It's about cultivating discernment, using critical thinking, intuition, and personal experience to guide us. It's important to remember that there might not be one single answer, but rather a multifaceted understanding that emerges through contemplation and open-minded exploration.
It's not a passive process, then. It's about actively engaging with these ideas and wrestling with their complexities. But isn't there a risk of overthinking it all, getting too intellectual and losing touch with the spiritual experience? How do we find that balance?
That's where personal experience plays a crucial role. While intellectual understanding is valuable, it's essential to go beyond theory and cultivate a direct, experiential connection with the divine. Practices like meditation, contemplation, and spending time in nature can be incredibly helpful for that.
So it's about bringing together intellectual understanding with direct experience, using both our minds and hearts to navigate this spiritual terrain. But this whole idea of escaping Kyle's influence, achieving liberation, it all sounds so abstract. Can you give us a more concrete picture of what that looks like? Do liberated souls just float around in some blissful void?
Well, that's where things get a bit more philosophical, and honestly, the sources we've looked at don't provide a step-by-step guide. They do hint at a state of existence that's beyond our current comprehension, a realm of pure consciousness, pure bliss, pure unity with the Supreme God. It's not about erasing individuality, but merging it with something much larger, something infinite, something that transcends the limitations of how we currently perceive reality.
It's less about a specific destination and more about the ongoing journey of seeking truth and striving for a deeper connection with the divine. But here's another question. If we're all trapped in this cosmic system, does free will even exist? If Khalil is this powerful entity, can we really choose our own path?
That's a great question, and it gets right to the heart of the matter. The sources suggest that while Khalil's influence is strong, he can't force souls to follow him. They made a choice, even with the warnings they received.
So even within this cosmic trap, we still have some agency, but doesn't that contradict the idea of Khalil being this all-powerful force? If he can't force us to follow him, how does he maintain his control?
That's where the concept of Maya, or illusion, comes in. Khalil's power lies in his ability to create and perpetuate this illusion of separation, of duality, of a world where suffering and limitation seem like the only reality. He can't make us choose him, but he can make choosing him seem like the most appealing, or even the only option.
So he's rigged the game, making it incredibly hard to see beyond the illusion and find the true path to liberation. But if we do break free from this illusion, what happens then? What does true liberation feel like?
That's a question that each individual has to answer for themselves through their own unique journey. The sources offer hints and clues, but the ultimate experience is a deeply personal one.
You know, it's interesting. We started off thinking of Khalil, or Satan, as this terrifying monster, but the more we've explored, it's become less about some external boogeyman and more about this inner struggle for liberation.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It makes you wonder if true evil might not be some outside force, but actually something within us. Our attachments, our ignorance, the things that lead us astray.
So the real trap isn't a physical place, but a state of mind. We're imprisoned by our own desires and illusions.
Exactly. We get caught in this cycle of wanting things, being afraid, and not seeing reality clearly. The key to breaking free is self-awareness, recognizing our true nature and our connection to the Supreme God.
We've talked about escape, but what does that actually look like? What happens to those souls that actually achieve liberation?
Well, the sources are a bit vague on the details. They talk about a state of existence that's beyond our current understanding, a realm of pure consciousness, pure bliss, pure unity with the Supreme God. It's not about wiping out our individuality, but merging with something bigger, something infinite.
That's a beautiful idea, not just escaping suffering, but experiencing something we can't even imagine right now. But this all leads to a pretty important question for our listeners. What does this mean for us here in the real world? How can we actually apply these insights to our everyday lives?
I think the biggest takeaway is to question everything. Don't just blindly accept what you hear, even if it seems like it's coming from a reliable source. Think critically, look for different perspectives, trust your gut.
So it's about taking control of our own spiritual journey, not just passively absorbing information. But there's so much out there. How do we know what's actually true?
That's where discernment comes in. It's about developing that inner knowing, learning to separate truth from falsehood. And it's an ongoing process, not a one-time thing. We'll make mistakes, but that's part of learning.
This deep dive has definitely given us a lot to think about. Not just information, but a whole new way of seeing the world and our place in it.
That's the power of exploring these concepts. It can really change us, liberate us, and help us live a more meaningful life.
Well said. And with that, we've reached the end of our deep dive into the realm of Kaal, or Satan. We hope you've enjoyed this journey with us and that you'll continue exploring these fascinating and complex topics.
Remember, the search for truth never ends. The answers you're looking for might be closer than you think.
Until next time, keep questioning, keep seeking, and keep diving deep.